The name is Bond, James Bond. Probably the greatest cinematic line ever uttered in the history of films. Well, that and possibly...
Do you expect me to talk?
No, Mr. Bond, I expect you to die.
Now, the James Bond series is my favourite cinema franchise of all time because it was the gateway to action movies as we know them today. Hell, Schwarzenegger and Bruce Willis would not even have film careers as action heroes without the quippy one-liners. But today I'll be talking about Being James Bond, a 46-minute documentary that is now on Apple TV, and it is an awesome documentary. That is all I have to say on that one. So right off the bat, something I did not expect is that it's not a talking heads piece, it is a conversational off-camera piece between Daniel Craig, Barbara Broccoli, OBE, and her half-brother Michael Wilson. And it's a look back at Daniel Craig stepping into the Crockett and Jones shoes from Casino Royale, Quantum of Solace, Skyfall, Spectre, and of course, in just over 2 weeks' time from now, No Time to Die. And yes, I am going to be seeing that particular movie 8 o'clock in the morning at the IMAX in Waterloo. I've got my premiere seat ready and waiting with a +1, which is going to be awesome. And I am looking forward to that film. It's going to be a fond farewell to Daniel Craig. I've got a couple of concerns about that, but I'll tell you towards the end of this review. But let's get on with it because that's what you came here for today. So, this is Barbara Broccoli talking about why she kind of wanted Daniel Craig to fill in those shoes that were vacated by Pierce Brosnan.
Well, about Daniel, because I had seen a lot of things from our friends from the North, and then obviously Enduring Love, my mother. And I always
gotta say, man, Daniel rocks that beard. Now, the thing is, with our friends up north, that's because Daniel Craig is a Scouser, but he's gotten rid of the Scouse accent over a long period of time. So I haven't seen our friends in the north for years, so I will at some point visit that again. But it's really interesting to see what Babs had to say about him there. For me, my introduction to Daniel Craig was actually Layer Cake, directed by Matthew Vaughn. Now, Matthew Vaughn was a producer for Guy Ritchie's earlier films. And that is a very famous moment in that film where Daniel Craig just stands by the corner of a door, has a Luger in his hand, and he just does the James Bond pose. It is a classic moment in the film. And when I watched it at the time, I even saw it at the cinema, I just thought to myself, are they making an audition for Bond here? Like, why? It seemed almost out of place, but when you look back at it now, it was just perfect timing. I appreciated that. And the fact that Daniel Craig was up against Hugh Jackman, Colin Farrell, and Clive Owen, which, yeah, the latter, I don't even understand how that was even called into question. Now, years after he was established as James Bond, Craig had said in an interview, I think it was to Jonathan Ross or it was in a newspaper, that he would walk up to random people in the streets after getting Casino Royale and was asking them, what do they think of him as James Bond? Now, Craig, if he came up to me, mate, I would have just said, yeah, quid's in, you're going to be awesome, and then get a selfie with him. Now, what's really amazing about this 46-minute documentary on Apple TV, they're showing a lot of BTS stuff behind the scenes that I've never witnessed before. So to me, this is the first time. They might be on the Blu-rays, but to be honest, I haven't actually watched those special features yet. But this feels like it's fresh, and I'm kind of glad they did it. But I thought the woman here walking in was Barbara Broccoli, but I think it's just a random actress.
You have to say,
I love this moment right here with Barbara Broccoli because you can see she's really cozying up to Daniel Craig. I think she had a real crush on him. I think it's obvious to see that. But I also think she was very protective of him as well. She was quite the matriarch, especially in the press junket interviews. She's kind of like the cool, calm, serene queen of the scene. And Daniel Craig is just doing his thing. But if he ran into trouble, it's almost like she was his shoulder to fall back on. I mean, he's the most interactive person as Bond that I've seen her being so animated with. Pierce Brosnan, she was fine. Timothy Dalton, she was okay with. But something about Daniel Craig, I mean, she says here, like when she saw him in Elizabeth, that drama series where he's walking with the almost looking like an Assassin's Creed character, that's kind of what captivated her. So I think really she's been captivated by Craig for his tenure as 007. It's a really nice moment, this actually. I mean, just look at Barbara there. I mean, she's just really keeping an eye on Craig. It's just, it's a great moment, this. I really like this. You can tell he's a bit nervous, he's a bit perplexed by the whole big deal. Now, you know what? When I watched that Val Kilmer documentary on Amazon Prime quite a few weeks ago, he talked about the fact that when you become Batman, you just simply put on a cowl and the cape and then you're window dressing. That's pretty much it. But I guess in the vein of Bond, because you're not covered by a mask, you're seen by the whole world, your imperfections are there for everyone to see. So I can understand Craig's trepidation here. I'm saying that like I know what it's like to be 007, but you get what I'm coming from. So yeah, I like that. That's just a really adoring look. That is someone who deeply cares for her leading man. And she's not even an actress, but yeah, all hail Barbara Broccoli. For me, the greatest female producer in movies. Kathleen Kennedy should probably take a cue from her books and not try to ruin a franchise by embedding it with weird ideology, woke politics. So of course they cover the whole CraigIsNotBond.com, a website that was set up by two teenagers. I didn't know this. Barbara Broccoli mentions this in the documentary. I mean, isn't this take really appalling? Like, you know, you got BBC journalists like sitting down in front of a camera and saying, "Are we ready for a blonde Bond?"
Oh my God. And
yeah, I actually think everybody in the cinema was saying, "Oh my God."
Probably the only time when a pap shot.
Holy crap. I mean, those speedos, man. Jeez.
That then, of course, changed the whole.
Call me Hunk, James Hunk. Now, what I find quite funny here is that you've got the modern day man in 2006, washboard stomach, and then you got a slightly out of shape Sean Connery and Pierce Brosnan with a bit of a thin neck there. But in comparison, you got, you know, Daniel Craig, this physical specimen of hunkiness. It's just, wow.
Know Daniel and what his Bond was going to be like. Suddenly, everybody went, "Oh my God, this is the guy, the blonde guy."
Who cares?
Who cares?
Look at those tits. Oh, well, I've got to say, Mr. Craig, you certainly do have a fine pair of bobs. Wow, those are some big boys. I just like the fact that you see Martin Campbell. Martin Campbell was the guy that really revitalized the Bond franchise with GoldenEye in 1995, and it's great to see him with Craig here. I don't know why they didn't bring Martin Campbell back for Quantum of Solace. That was one of the things that always puzzled me. Like, I don't know, it was a strange decision. Now, this moment here is interesting because it's the opening. This is where he gets his 00 status. But the guy here, this person, I believe he gave up. He had a really well-paid job, like a highly paid job. He gave it up to become a actor / stuntman in Hollywood, and this was his first gig, I believe. I don't know if he's had any success since, but wow, I mean, what commitment. You know, he had that calling, I'm going to be opposite a brand new James Bond. This could be my time to get into Hollywood, but that's incredible. Good to see that Craig has that sort of compassion and concern for his leading man. I like that. That's awesome. Yeah, but as we go down this documentary, they talk about Quantum of Solace, which you see here, and what Daniel Craig does talk about too is that he did like 90% of his own stunts in this movie because he got leaner and fitter for this movie as opposed to the bulkier version we saw in Casino Royale. But he said it was to his detriment that he did many of his stunts because he ended up hurting himself a lot more. So it's a shame. And Quantum of Solace, I do like it from a stylistic fashion point of view. It's a great movie. I think what lets it down is that the way the action scenes are not necessarily filmed, the way they're edited, that's what kind of ruins that movie. But here, this is when he, after his successful Casino Royale, this is where all the magazines were clamoring for his attention. And that's excellent. I love that cover. I've never seen that cover before. That's pretty awesome. Keeping a straight face for Britain there, Mr. Bond. I do like that. Ah, Skyfall. Now, Skyfall for me is just, again, you know, what a great time. 2012. I'm sure they shot some scenes in my local neighborhood. I've seen the part where M is driving in the DB5 Aston Martin with Bond. For me, like, Bond's been an enduring franchise for 59 years. I can't see the MCU being relevant if it ever gets to 59 years. It probably won't. The world, we might not be here in that time, so I can't see that ever happening. And that's why Bond has been a legacy in movies. Why it's been a beloved franchise. Is every film from the Bond series great? No. Some probably have dated more horribly than others, but every now and then I'll still watch them to get a few shits and giggles, to quote Austin Powers. But for me, Bond is a real event movie. Again, I did a review on GoldenEye a few months ago on this channel, and for me, it's like November comes around, and it means a Bond movie is just about to come out. I love all of that. Bond, like November is a Bond release month for me. I know it's September this year because of what's been happening, but I do honestly believe Bond has got a great chance to make $1 billion around the world, or near to $1 billion, because one of the significant things you have to know that if a movie like this is released in China, which it will be because it should have been in 2020, but that didn't happen for the obvious reasons, it's got a good chance. Marvel have struggled recently in this year to get their movies released in China because China are opposed to things within Marvel movies now, which I won't go into, but you can look it up online, see for yourself. It's interesting reading. Black Widow failed to get a release in China. Shang-Chi looks like it's going to fail too because China is opposed to things within that movie. But Bond will have no problem because Casino Royale was the first Bond film ever to get a release in China back in 2007 with Casino Royale. So that trend is obviously continuing now, and Chinese folks love Daniel Craig as Bond. You can't blame them for that. So I think that's going to really boost its box office potential. So folks, if you got Apple, do watch this, Being James Bond, a conversational piece with Daniel Craig, Broccoli, and Michael Wilson. It is fantastic. I hope they release this as part of the No Time to Die Blu-ray release. I hope it gets some kind of physical release. It's absolutely worth it. So if you liked this shaken but not stirred review from me today, leave a like below, smack me in the face, and I'll see you on the next review.
I look at what I've done and go, that's part of Goldfinger. And I'm like, wow.
You can run, but you can't hide!